Today we are talking about something that I no longer want you to trust when it comes to your manifestation practice, and that is your intellect. And it's hard not to say that without laughing, because I don't really mean that in an extreme and literal way. What I really mean is that you need to stop taking every little thought seriously that you have as you're manifesting as if it's like an interesting intellectual adventure to figure out, because it's distracting you. It's actually taking you out of the wish fulfilled, as I'm sure you've experienced. So today I'm going to go deeper into this in terms of like what is happening that's causing you to overthink, how you can stop doing it, and therefore finally manifest a lot of the bigger things that you want but have so much resistance to because you can't stop overthinking this whole process. And as always, before we jump fully into it, I will introduce myself to those of you who maybe you're just clicking on this for the first time, you have no idea who I am, you were inexplicably drawn by the title and thumbnail, and therefore you allowed yourself to be led to me to finally get you on the right path of manifestation. Anyway, besides the point, my name is Genevieve and I'm a manifestation coach, and on this channel we go deep into some of the nuances of manifestation that are sometimes oversimplified and you just need some deeper explanation on, just to give you some relief to know that you are not crazy or that you're not alone, and then also given maybe some more instruction on how to overcome these things that can often affect people who are manifesting. I mainly work within the paradigm of law of assumption, but I talk about all kinds of other things that are very complementary to law of assumption and just manifestation in general. So if you'd like to work with me, I have lots of links in the description below. I highly, highly recommend doing the courses. I have very in-depth, very structured courses, and that every day I send you an email with very in-depth lessons and homework. So if you are needing structure, if you're needing more in-depth overtime learning, again, go with the courses, because it's gonna give you the structure you need, because a lot of you are just like freewheeling manifestation. You're not really keeping yourself in a structure. You're not really grounding yourself every day in the knowledge that you need. So again, I highly recommend that, but you can also do a session with me. So yeah, links for all of that stuff is down below. Okay, so let's get into this. I have to say, a part of me wanted to title this video, "Why Smart People Have Trouble Manifesting." But I knew that would be taken to offense and it would be taken in the wrong way. And it's also just not true. And I don't even want to suggest, even though I just did in a joking way, but I don't really want to suggest that smart people have trouble manifesting. But the reason I wanted to title this video that originally is because I've worked with hundreds and hundreds of people so far in this manifestation world. And when you work with a lot of people over time, you start to notice as a coach distinct patterns, distinct things where, certain people who are this way, they tend to get this kind of result. And then other people who are this way, they get this kind of result. So a pattern that I have noticed, one of the many, is that people who are very smart, very intellectual, very in their heads, and it's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing to be very intellectual. Like, I'm speaking from experience. I probably tend to attract a lot of clients that are like that because I myself am like that. You can just tell by the way I speak that I'm like intellectual. But the pattern that I've noticed with this is that people who are very, very smart, very, very self-aware, very much in their heads, almost like hyper vigilantly aware of themselves, because they're so used to kind of like thinking about everything and thinking about themselves and other people and how it's all interacting and like overthinking and over intellectualizing. Those people tend to have trouble manifesting, not like forever, but while you're still operating in that paradigm, and by that I mean while you're still not even realizing how much you're overthinking, like when you keep allowing yourself to just go off with all of the different thoughts, all the different questions you have, where you're taking, like I said in the beginning of this video, where you're taking every question you ask yourself seriously as if it's like, oh, that's a real question that I should consider. Maybe that's a problem. Maybe this is a problem and I need to consider it in a different way and I need to think about it and figure it out. And I can't manifest until I've figured it out. You are never going to figure it out. That's just the first thing I have to say. But it's so funny. There's a lot of clients I have are like this, where they want to talk and talk and talk and ask all these very deep, very, very curious questions. But all of it is often a distraction. It's an ego distraction to keep you from not just accepting that what you've decided is done, that the wish fulfilled is done. There's no question opposing the wish fulfilled that you need to entertain as if it's like, oh, maybe this is real. Maybe this question needs a deep dive into it. We need to think about this question because it feels very important, this question. And then it causes you to overthink and Google things like, what is free will? And is all manifestation possible? Is this possible? Is that possible? And you're like overthinking and like really trying to intellectualize all this stuff. So if you identify with any of that, this is obviously for you. You have to remind yourself that you are never going to think your way into the wish fulfilled. It doesn't happen on a conscious intellectual level. Like, I want to remind you that manifestations happen as a result of what has really impressed itself into your subconscious. It doesn't happen in your conscious mind, but your conscious mind can be a big gateway, a big tool that helps impress the subconscious mind. And it's a tool that can either keep you separate from your subconscious because you're like, nope, I'm not going in the subconscious. That's a scary place. I'm going to stay in my conscious mind where in my ego, I perceive I have all the control and all the power, and it feels very powerful for me to really think about this and really entertain all these questions. Like, nope, I'm not going in the subconscious. I'm going to stay here. So when you do that, you're using your conscious mind, your ego mind, as like a closed gate. It's like I'm not going to change my subconscious. I just want to stay in my ego. And you have to see that it's no wonder your manifestations aren't working or haven't come into the full 3D yet, because you're not really manifesting. You're just in your head overthinking stuff and taking every little question, every little doubt, every little thing that pops up. You're taking it way too seriously. You're reacting, especially, I found this to be the case, people who are especially overreacting to their internal stimuli, like every little feeling you have or every little thought you have that maybe is slightly uncomfortable or slightly confusing to you, you might like over fixate on it and over intellectualize it, and you start engaging with it as if it's like, oh, this might be a problem. Like, I need to really figure this out. And the more you can learn to ignore those things, like it's like, and I don't mean ignore as in ignore your feelings, because I'm not the kind of coach. I know for a fact that ignoring and suppressing your feelings isn't going to help. It's going to make things worse. But when I say ignore, I mean having a thought or a feeling come up and just being able to see it as like, that's okay. That doesn't really mean anything. It's just a thought, or it's just a sensation. If it's a feeling, it's just a sensation. Or if it's a thought, it's like, that's just something random. I have a million thoughts a day. That's not one I need to glom onto. And that's also true that you do have thousands and thousands of thoughts every day. And notice the ones that you get really hooked by and you want to start really overthinking and really engaging with, and the ones you don't. I mean, it's hard to notice the ones you don't notice because you're already not noticing them. But I just want you to realize that these thoughts are coming up, and you do have a choice to just practice ignoring them, just like you practice ignoring a lot of your other just stream of consciousness thoughts that come throughout the day. So again, manifestations do not happen as a result of you intellectualizing everything and getting all the answers in your intellect about things. Of course, as I just said, your conscious mind, your ego mind can be a big tool, a big important tool in terms of helping your subconscious mind to be impressed. And often, for example, like when you're watching these videos on YouTube, whether it's me or somebody else, when someone says something where it's like all of a sudden it clicks and your ego mind finally releases some resistance because someone like me or someone else says something that's like, whoa, that just clicked. That's good. That's a good thing that happened in your ego mind, because you finally, something released resistance where it was no longer a problem anymore. It's like you finally felt resolved about it. But the problem is that a lot of people are avoiding doing the deeper work, avoiding staying consistent in their work. And this is the big thing. A lot of people are not being consistent in their manifestation practice because they think like, well, I can't do a technique, I can't do a practice until I figure out all my questions. I've got a lot of questions and I can't do any of this until I figure out the questions. And it's like, no, you have to, the question itself needs to be let go of, and you're keeping yourself trapped every time you have a question and you want to go down the rabbit hole to answer it. Because, as I'm sure you've heard the quote before, the level of consciousness that caused a problem, or I should really say perceives a problem, the level of consciousness that perceives a problem is not the level of consciousness that's ever going to solve that problem. And what you will find, and maybe a lot of you have already experienced this as manifestors, is when you genuinely shift states, or you shift your state of being or your state of consciousness, you will notice that in that better state, that fulfilled state, you naturally, it's like the problems that existed in the old state, they just don't even come up in the new one, or they just dissolve. It's like they don't, it's like you realize, yeah, I didn't even need an answer to that question. It was just a dumb question that I was using to beat myself up. Because now that I'm over here in this state, this more fulfilling, positive state where I have everything I want, that doesn't even exist. That question doesn't exist. The answer doesn't even need to exist, because it's all just pointless. It was just a problem that only existed in that frame of consciousness. So again, I'm saying this so that you can really get it deeper, that the more you practice diligently in a healthy mental diet, being able to, have a question come up, like a question, let's just say a question that's like, because this is one I got from a client. I think I've gotten this actually a few times from clients, so it's a common question, but a question like, well, what if my SP isn't capable of being the person that I want him to be? That's a really gripping question, isn't it? Like when your intellect, your ego, wanting to protect itself in the state that it knows, the state that's hypervigilant and, on guard, and actually doesn't really want to go into the new state, because all states, I should say, want to stay in their own state. Like every state is self-propelling, I should say. This is why we say that the script for every state of being, the script for every reality is already written, and that once you're in reality C here, reality C, it just wants to keep itself going. It wants to follow its script until the end, even though there is no end. It's always just going and going and going. It doesn't want to actually go over here to script A. It doesn't want to go over there. So when it asks you this question of, well, what if my SP isn't capable of being who I want them to be? That's a part of this one script. It wants you to be like, whoa, that's a really cool question, and it's very important that I figure it out, and I'm gonna stay fixated on it. And then it just keeps you going. It's not like you're gonna have that question answered over here, and then it's like, oh, okay, the answer is yes, that my SP can become the person I want them to be. So I'm just instantly over here now. It never, from overthinking, that it never really works out that way. It never is satisfied. It wants to like consume itself more and more. It wants and then it finds its own proof. This is another thing in terms of like every reality has its own script. Like when you're in the reality of my SP, for example, I'm just using the SP example, but like the reality of my SP doesn't conform or can't conform, and they're too far gone, or I'm too far gone, or we're too whatever, the circumstances are too different or whatever, that state over here that's causing that, it will obviously manifest proof that that's true. And so the more that you are really seriously in the question of, well, what if my SP can't conform? What if he's not capable or whatever? This is going to be like, oh yeah, that's probably true. And let's look at the proof. Let's look at the evidence of why that's true. And that's obviously not helping you manifest. You're just staying stuck over here, and you really have to take a leap of faith. There's a lot of surrender in this, and I get that it can be uncomfortable, because especially when you're so used to overthinking and really engaging with certain things in a certain way, like your SP, for example, since we're sticking with that. But when you're so used to, always thinking of your SP in this way, because it's always been this way between you and your SP, or it's been this way for a long time. So it's very familiar. It's very known. You've got a lot of evidence. It can feel crazy to just totally surrender yourself to, this is reality A over here. This is reality A, where of course your SP is the version of them that you want. They are right now. And even if you can't see it in the 3D, you still know that this is true. Everything about you and SP being together and having fun and sharing love and being super secure and awesome and going on trips to Venice or whatever, That's all over here, and even though over here it's like that's totally not happening, well, of course not. That doesn't happen in this reality. So stop engaging in the questions of this reality as if it's interesting. You have to totally surrender. You have to and like I said, I get it. It doesn't make sense. The ego is like, why would I completely abandon reality, this being reality? Why would I abandon reality to choose something that's completely foreign to me and doesn't make logical sense in terms of whatever the current world is? So I get it. And again, this is why I wanted to label or title this video like about like why smart people can't do this, is because especially people who are really smart, really intellectual, really logical, it takes even more suspension of disbelief to really just be able to drop the questions and just be like, okay, just gonna surrender that this is true. This is true. I have no proof of it, but this reality over here, I can just let go, have fun in my life in the moment, and just know and expect and enjoy that this reality is true, even though in this moment in the 3D, maybe like you have no evidence that this is true. So another thing I wanted to address when it comes to overthinking is a lot of people come up with the excuse of like, well, I just have so much anxiety and I'm just so used to overthinking. Like, how do I turn my brain off? And again, I totally get it. I have been there. Like, I know what it's like to be an overthinker and to have anxiety and to be living in my head all the time and constantly, you know, almost being hyper vigilant about like reality. I totally get that. But the more that you defend it, because when I as a coach give you a suggestion and you come back and say like, well, I can't, I'm just like really anxious, or like, oh, it's too hard or whatever, that's not you saying that. That is your, again, old reality defending itself through you. And I'm saying it in this way because I want you to become so conscious of all of the ways that your old reality hooks you and tricks you and gets you to believe that you are that anxiety or that you are that overthinking, and that it's not easy to let go of it. Because the more you defend it, the more you claim it's not easy to let go of that, then yeah, it's not, because it's your reality. And if you claim it's not easy and you keep like going back to it and you defend it and you're like, yep, I'm choosing it, it's not easy, I'd rather stick with that because it's not easy to change, then fine, that's fine. You can just stay over there and keep manifesting the old stuff. But if you really want to embrace your new reality, you have to trust yourself in a different way. And I'm saying this because I want you to start practicing interacting with yourself in a different way. And I was kind of alluding to this before when I was talking about your mental diet. But in terms of like when you're going through your day, you're just living your life, you're going through your day, and stuff comes up, and maybe it's even like a strong thing, like all of a sudden you just get this wave of anxiety that's like, oh my God, my SP will never conform, they'll never do this, or whatever it is. You have to, it's okay to have the emotion at that moment, but in your mind, this is where it's important. It's not so much changing the emotion right away. The emotion will naturally ebb and flow and like make itself alchemize into something else the more you stay disciplined, I guess, in your mind. So in your mind, you have to remind yourself, you have to get space from whatever you're experiencing, and you have to remind yourself, this is not real. This thing that I'm experiencing right now, this is not who I am. This is not something I need to take so seriously anymore. Because that's also part of it, is like, stop taking every thought you have so seriously. Stop taking every biological reaction and emotion you have so seriously. Because when you take it so seriously, you get consumed by it. You become that reality when it comes up. And you're just like, whoa, this is serious and I have no choice. I've just got to face it and just knuckle through it. Like, that's not, I don't want you to interact with yourself that way anymore. Like, I want you to be gentle. I want you to have your feelings, because your feelings don't matter, honestly. I mean, they matter in the sense that they will naturally change. You will naturally start feeling better the more you genuinely start shifting into the wish fulfilled. But your feelings in each moment, it's okay to feel sad or to feel anxious or to feel worried or angry even, and to still assume that everything's working out for you. Like, you don't need your feelings to be perfect. And this is why I tend not to always associate so much with law of attraction, because I feel like there's a lot of misunderstandings in law of attraction where it's all about like, yeah, bad things happen when you feel bad and good things happen when you feel good. That has not been my experience. This is why I love the law of assumption, where I've been in terrible moods before, And in the midst of being in a terrible mood, having bad vibes, bad emotions, amazing manifestations that I had been manifesting for a while would suddenly come in. And it's not to say that like it was always when I was in a bad mood, because it's happened in both ways. It's also been when I was in a good mood. But I'm saying this to say that from my experience, it didn't matter. It didn't matter that on that day that I was feeling crappy about myself and I was kind of dabbling in low self-esteem, and then something huge happens that's really positive. Like, to me, that's proof of like, okay, my emotions, I don't need to really worry about that, but I do need to stay disciplined up here. I do need to be very careful about what I'm making my emotions mean. So anyway, that was kind of a tangent, but that was important in terms of this overthinking thing, because a lot of people are enmeshing too much. They're enmeshing their thoughts with their feelings, trying to solve their feelings by overthinking, and we've got to cut that off. The last thing I want to say about this, and I was also alluding to this before, so I'm going to say it again, is you need to practice this. Like, you can't keep intellectualizing this. Is another really common thing I've been seeing in my clients, especially lately. I've been an uptick in this, where it's just that I'm talking to people, and again, I see myself in them, where there's a lot of consumption of information, there's a lot of thinking happening, and that's good. Like, I do want you to get lots of information. That's good. That can, as I said before, can help you to have breakthrough moments in your ego where suddenly you do hear something that lessens your resistance and you do get it deeper, and that's good. But you also need to be having a personal practice, especially if you are in a place where there's big things you're wanting to manifest and those things feel very much like not here right now. You do need to be manifesting them by doing some sort of a technique practice. And again, as I say a million times, it's not about the technique itself. It's about you having a practice that you're grounding in, and you're using one of millions of techniques, or even making up your own, to ground yourself every day in, you know, something that is going to give you that deeper saturation. It's actually going to impress into your subconscious mind, so that you get that shift and you're no longer just fighting yourself every day in your ego, thinking you're manifesting, and it's like you're not manifesting, or you're manifesting, but you're just manifesting the old stuff. You're just persisting in lack and calling it manifesting, basically. So have a practice where you actually stick to it, you are diligent, and notice how just doing a practice every day helps you to become a different person, to be in a different reality. And it just happens naturally because you're sticking to your practice. So that is all I have to say about this. I hope that made sense today. Of course, I know it did. So let me know your thoughts and questions. I laugh because it's like your intellectual thoughts and questions. And again, it's totally okay, of course, to be smart and intellectual. Like, I hope I didn't offend anyone with that, because as I said, I am one of those people. I like to have a lot of information. I am often tempted to live in my head, especially with things that I'm still a little bit uncomfortable about. So I get it. I totally get it. I've lived that reality. So it's not a problem, but save your intellect, save your curiosity, save your amazing smartness and self-awareness for something more entertaining, not for the things that are the things you're trying to manifest and you're trying to think your way through it. Save your intellect for, you know, work, for engaging your mind at work, for learning about new topics, for book club, for, you know, things that are like, you know, the things that keep your ego engaged in like a healthy present moment kind of way. Do not be applying your intellect too much to this, because this is really about suspending disbelief. This is not about thinking your way into something. It's about just being like, okay, I'm just going to be in this new reality. I'm going to practice being in it. I cannot logic my way into it. In my experience, I've never really seen people who've had that great of success logicking their way into the new reality. It's just, instead, logic keeps them in the old one and the hamster wheel. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video, and let me know your thoughts and any requests you have for future videos, and I will see you guys next time. All right, bye.